matchups rather from our day of games. Starting with Game 2, LEC's G2 versus the LPL Suning. I mean, this has got to be the game of the day, and by many accounts, including the casters on the game itself, it was the game of worlds, Kobe.
Yeah, for sure. This is definitely the most exciting one that we have had to date. Suning just came out with such coordination in their team fights, gaining these big leads over G2, but G2, huge macro plays for them. Despite Jankos falling behind early to SofM's big plays, aggressive early jungling, they were still able to pull it through. Twisted Fate wildcard stealing dragons. We had a base relay race to end it all off. So many good team fights to go back and watch. It just had so much action, so much tension in it throughout.
Yeah, and I wanted to really point out SofM. I know that you talked about how the early game went for him versus Jankos and how he was able to use Angel as an extension of himself, all that to be able to get an experience advantage. Those insane team fights that he was able to have. But yeah, this game, as you can see from the replays in front of you, banger alert. That's like steer clear of anything else other than this game. It was amazing to watch.
The Raz jumping out of his seat as a recommendation.
Raz,
yes.
Or rather, Spawn, what's the answer to that question that's just been thrown up on the screen? Is it, in fact, the best game of the world so far?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think you can look past this game because it really had like the two ideal compositions coming through for both teams, in my opinion. It had the star players popping off, some return to form mixed in there as well. So when you had a look at this game, not only did it have the back and forth, but it was actually quite high quality. And I think that the right members stepped up at the right time to make this a really exciting game of League of Legends.
Yeah, I know you are heavily talking about bottom lane specifically, Spawn. And looking at Summer from G2, that's where a lot of people's worries were for G2, why they weren't giving them the same amount of credit coming from last Worlds and their dominating performance. But both Perkz and Mickey had big games for themselves. There was that team fight that drew a lot of eyes, Perkz dumping out over 10,000 damage in it. But Mickey as well, so many big setup plays for the Bard. He had that ward on the blast cone. He had plenty of heals, defensive ultimates, really nice stuff.
Yeah, and to me, it was like Perkz was the member that coming into Worlds, I was like, if G2 is going to prove to actually be this legitimate contender to be able to win Worlds, I need to see a return to form from Perkz. And I think we got that this game. And there were a couple of really key moments that I want to highlight to show that it's often the little things from your AD carry. So very early on in the game, he actually called Jankos down into his lane, got himself that reset that was able to maintain teleport advantage. At about the 8-minute mark, they start up the Rift Herald. Perkz is able to actually teleport towards that. That means that they're able to pick themselves up Rift Herald. He also had really smart itemization. We've talked a lot about the meme of losses to Boris so far at Worlds. As soon as the Ocean Soul was picked up, immediately goes away and gets that Executioner's Calling as well. And the uptime on his DPS was incredibly impressive. And I know what everyone's saying, like Caps carried this game, Wonder carried this game, Mickey had a stellar performance. And we all know the depth of the G2 lineup, right? This is a team that across the board is the super team of Europe. They are the hopes of the LEC to win another world championship. But for me, their captain, their star player needs to be Perkz for that to happen. To win Worlds, in my opinion, you need a great AD carry. And Perkz at the moment is showing that he is back in that form to be able to be a great AD carry.
I fully agree with you. And I think the words that you use in like a European super team, it's that idea, because of how the summer split had went for this team had been falling away. And to your point, because of the bot lane, but also for me, the inconsistencies of the jungle. I felt as though like what we were seeing was everything that we wanted to see from G2, what made them really monsters in 2019 in international and tournaments. But I still need to see that from Jankos. Jankos, I think, had some really questionable decisions. Like when he got pilfered in his own jungle, he decided to walk out and go for Raptors when he had no mid-prior. He had all of the information that Syndra was going to go there, and he still went for it. Like, we need to see these things kind of get cleared away if we want to see G2 in peak form and for teams to really fear them in these games.
It's a totally valid point, but really, you got to focus on that? Of all the things to focus on in that game?
This is one of many examples, but like at the end of the day, what we got to see was exactly what Spawn said, which was like, this was a Perkz game as well as everyone is starting to come together and like their first games in Worlds, which is really fun to see for G2.
And the thing is, people already were super hyped on the solo lanes of G2. Like Spawn's talking about coming out of summer, people were not worried about Caps or Wonder. And those players are still going to be players that are going to be stars and on the forefront of their games. But people are looking at the other areas for them to have the complete package to really challenge the teams at the top, that people are now looking at TES and Dom1 as heavy favorites. They were already coming into it, but especially with the Dom1 over JDG performance.
Definitely. One final beat on this game before we move on. In his Worlds 2020 debut, SofM made every second count by kicking 2 members of G2 to their deaths, made possible by the Cisco network. Let's take a look. Raz, walk me through it. I know you're a big fan.
This one was beautiful to watch for me because, like, the entire idea, like the beginning of the fight, I think was a little bit doomed for Suning because they had lost their support. He had got picked right from the get-go. But then for SofM to find that picture-perfect kick, I thought was insane. At first I thought, like, how are they going to be able to take this fight? Did he need to ward hop kick? The coordination with the flash from the Renekton to get the stun, being able to get the picture-perfect kick on the AD carry, I think that saved them this fight and the game up until like the later portions of it.
And the coordination with Mickey. Mickey, where are you going? He's running right over to Perks. I think that was one of the few moments where I was like, hey, where are you going with that one? Because he brings SofM right over. This also really highlights Angel's coordination with SofM, because yes, you got that great kick. Yes, you get the line knockup. You have the AD carry locked up in CC, but that doesn't matter if there's no damage there. And Angel walks melee range of a volley bear into range of TF stun just so he can get that Syndra ult off to kill off Perks and make that a teamfight victory for Suning. And that was one of the big things about their team fights. There was so much coordination in these plays to pull them back from deficits.
And I think that's a major difference in SofM this year. Like Raz, when we used to watch SofM all the time, he was a guy that would build like full damage on his Lee Sin. He was running things like Ignite, Smite as well before it was cool. But now he's got a team like crazy enough to actually go in with him. Like they actually see the game the way that he sees the game. Therefore, he's been able to change up his style to more of that supportive facilitator. We're going to keep talking about it, but Angel's going to play around him. In the team fights, they're going to look to follow his lead a lot of the time. And he just plays like a madman on Summoner's Rift. Like he only goes forward. He is like the categorical go-forward player, and it's very fun to watch.
Raz, I want to give you the final point here on Suning. What is your impression of this LPL squad, even in the loss here? Because this felt like the most difficult of the LPL teams to kind of nail down coming into the tournament, and particularly the group stage. A number of people saying, wouldn't be surprised if this were the LPL team to kind of peter out in groups and not make it to the knockout stage. But how did you feel about the showing against G2 here, even in the loss?
I'm incredibly confident because they looked confident. I think a lot of people had lacking faith because of the younger players. How was Huanfeng, how was Angel and Bin going to perform on that stage? And I thought that they came in and were always on point in team fights. They matched really well against a veteran lineup, and it was G2 that had to rise to the occasion in those instances to have a fantastic game. So I think Suning for sure are a team to beat in this group.
Well, while Suning rather fell down today, JDG took a step up, Kobe, taking the win over PSG Talon, of course, rebounding from their loss yesterday against Dom1 Gaming.
Let me tell you, James, we have had some stops in group
we
already. Only 2 days in. I cast 3 of them myself right at the opening day. But this is the stomp to take all stomps, okay? JDG, they were angry about that loss to Dom1, and they came out firing on all cylinders. You could tell from Champion Select, they were like, we are going to steamroll over them, towers or not. 4 melee champions, my friend. This is a dive comp through and through, and they take that dive comp, they start roaming around the lanes early on to pick up those kills, and once you start getting those aggressive kills, snowballing with that gold. They did not care about the towers. They went right behind them. Expert usage of Pantheon for multiple early ones where you can immune the extra damage that comes through. They had no fear. And you could just tell from, the first 5 minutes of this one, JDG were going to run away from it. This hypes you right back up then for the rematch that they'll have with Dom1 at the top of the group.
Yeah, and I think that when you have a look at a game like this, you get to understand like what priority and pressure and the ability to move first to a play actually means. And this is what we're talking so much when we talk about, why is this team not 4-man diving this turret? Why are they not, utilizing the extra seconds they have on Summoner's Rift to be able to create skip steps, to be able to, they were diving tier 2s at certain points in this game. And I mean, it's just flawless play, in my opinion. Sure, like I always say this, when you play really good League of Legends, if another team plays really good League of Legends, it kind of degrades a little bit because League of Legends is a pressure game. So it did require PSG to kind of have a shocker of a game at the same time.
Yeah.
But this still is a JDG that when you give them like the champions that they're looking for, and when you allow them to dictate the terms of the game, they are going to absolutely dismantle you. This was a shellacking.
Yeah, very much a dominant game. Just over 23 minutes was the total game time on that one. Quite rather a resurgence for a squad that took a hard loss to Damwon just yesterday. We're going to step away. On the other side, Valdez is going to join us to break down Gen G versus TSM. We got more Worlds Cooldown coming at you after this.